Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Alexandra Greenberg, and I'm the owner of GreenTree Ayurveda, and this is Insight into Wellness. Today, we are transcending your money beliefs, revealing what is scribbled all over your relationship with money and the unconscious beliefs that you hold. My guest is Michelle Arpin Begina, founder and gateway. Michelle has used the many lessons from her life to rethink how financial advisors and their clients have traditionally worked together. Rather than thinking of her role as a gatekeeper of portfolios, she sees real value in being a gateway to personal financial freedom. To support her clients on their unique wealth journeys, Michelle is a technician of financial planning, investment, and wealth management. But what differentiates Michelle from other financial advisors is that she has spent the last 2+ decades studying the unconventional, non-financial aspects of life satisfaction, financial therapy, it's a thing, behavioral bias, and choice and decision advising. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I am too. I think this topic is so juicy. So before we dive in, please tell us about yourself and what are some of the money lessons you have learned along the way?
Well, they really all started from my talented, hardworking, and footloose parents who made and spent a fortune. It was a rich, poor upbringing, and that created a safe facade and also this need to make me want to run for cover. Um, I was very aware as a kid that there was a lot more going on in money than just whether we had it or we didn't. I realized that we have emotional ties and hooks to it. And my silent mantra when I was growing up was, there's got to be a better way, because what I was experiencing and witnessing was pretty uncomfortable. So I just swore that I would do it differently than my parents. I mean, I think we all swear that we'll do something a little different than our parents. That was definitely mine. And doing that was not an easy road. So my parents, because they spent everything that they made, I learned how to spend money, right? They were spendthrifts, and spendthrifts is, it can be a confusing word. The origins of the word actually mean to spend your prosperity. And that's what my parents were doing. So I had to unlearn how to spend money, because that's what I grew up experiencing and seeing. And that was the long road. But ultimately, what I learned is that we have the ability to transcend our money beliefs. We have the ability to transcend our money upbringing, and the ability to nurture a healthy relationship with money into existence.
What there's so many stories we all have around money. How did you transcend? How did you find this new way of looking at your story?
Mm-hmm. Well, it originally did start with that thought growing up that there's got to be a better way. And I was always, I'm old enough that newspapers used to be delivered at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I would get the newspaper, and the very first section I would go to would be the human interest section, and the second section would be the business section. I was the kid at 7 who used to take her father's briefcase and want to go to her girlfriend's house to play pretend accountant, right? I didn't have a lot of friends when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was always very interested in people, and I was very interested in business. It just came naturally to me. So, and then this belief of there's got to be a better way, there's got to be a better way. So one thing led to another, where I was studying accounting. I decided to change course when I found out what financial advisors do for a living. And what I loved about that work and what I found out was it was the perfect marriage between understanding the people that you get to work with and being able to analyze the numbers behind them. So it was this marriage of, what I call an emotional spreadsheet with facts and figures. And that experience of becoming a financial advisor was when I really started to understand more about the psychology of people, their choice, their decision making, all of the emotional elements, the biology that comes into managing our money well. and ultimately that we have a relationship with money. So it was really informing the relationships with the people that I was working with that I realized that they have their own relationship with money. And I was trying to always unpack the bag to understand what their relationship with money was and also understand what their underlying beliefs were. So, our beliefs are fine so long as they're serving us. Where I would get very curious is in giving people advice and they weren't able to follow through, or someone saying that they wanted something but that they wouldn't take any action on it. And that made me really curious as to what was going on for that person. What could they control? What could they not control? And what was going on that needed that maybe could be put in the control column, but just needed to be massaged more and needed to be understood. That then got me down to, many roads of learning, from behavioral economics to financial therapy. And, what I like to say is I package, the technical competence of a financial advisor. I'm coachy. I'm not a certified coach, but I'm very coachy. I'm not a therapist either, but I'm very therapeutic. So I marry all those worlds together.
It's really interesting to think of something like a financial advisor, to really see and to see how that can connect back to the human, back to these really foundational human things, our emotions. When we spoke before, what really stood out to me was that you take this humanistic approach to working with people, with money. Can you give us some insight into why that's important right now, especially 2020, 2021, where it's there's so much going on? How do you bring it back to that humanistic approach?
Yeah. Well, I think it is an approach, and the original idea for that when we were talking about it before is that I think we've all gotten very used to people saying I take a holistic approach, which is, and not just financial advisors, but lots of different professionals saying that they look at all of the parts, all of the bits that are relative to the client or the situation that they're working on. And it's appropriate, and it's I think a table stake at this point of being holistic. Where I think we're evolving is that next level of not only being holistic but being humanistic, and that's really understanding who the person is that you're having this relationship with, that you're advising. That's what I mean by humanistic. I think it takes the work to a much higher, deeper level, because what you're really starting to understand are their attitudes, their emotions, their feelings, their behaviors. And I'm speaking as a financial advisor, but I think what I'm saying applies to anyone who works with another human being, right? We all want to be known. We all want to be understood. We all want to be heard and listened to. And I think it's that type of approach that, as any advisor, I think it helps us to help that person make better decisions, because the choices that we will lay out to them, while we may not be the gatekeeper of information any longer, what we have is the skill and the experience to know which service or which product is most appropriate for that person, because we know them so well. We know them as the human.
It's really so important. And I use that term a lot, and the holistic, and to kind of move into this more humanistic approach. It really says a lot. It really does.
Well, I know in your work too, you're very humanistic,
Yeah.
right? I know what goes on when people sit in your chair, right, or are working with you, that, you're not operating on a surface level either. You're going several layers deeper. It's very similar to what you're doing.
Pull back the onion layers and go deep. I mean, that is truly where the change happens. And and for you as well, this, if we use the term, if we use the metaphor of the onion, there's that outer layer, and that's what everyone sees, and that's what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But when we start to peel back and we start to look into our story and our decisions, whether they be beneficial or possibly harmful, how do you start to bring those into the light with the people that you're working with, these unconscious beliefs, and start to change the story?
Mhm. There are a lot of ways. One way to do it is to think about your narrative, right? What is my money story? What is your money story? And that's usually a trip down memory lane of thinking back to the first memory you may have had with money, or multiple memories you would have had. As an adult, we have an opportunity to not only re-experience those memories by thinking about them, but then also connect the dots between what we made those experiences mean to us as children. And we all know this, right? When we're growing up, we feel things before we understand the emotions, before we understand the cognition. So a lot of our experiences in everything in life, but in particular with money, we've made meaning about things maybe when we were 4 years old and we didn't have the cognitive capacity to really understand all the set of facts of why decisions were being made the way that they were being made, but we felt them, right? We were experiencing the emotions of them. That then we jumped to conclusions and made assumptions, and our inner 4-year-old might be in charge of our money. I mean, I always say this to people: if you have children and your 401k statement arrives and your 4-year-old walks by, fork it over to them and say, hey, listen, would you let me know how I should rebalance this? Get back to me, right? That literally could be what's going on here, right? So it's really a matter, and I'm being cheeky, but it's really a matter of looking at your narrative, right? Your big narrative of what do you actually say about yourself when it comes to money? What are some of the things that you say out loud? Like, I remember meeting with a woman a couple of years ago who, the very first time I met her, she kept saying how many, and it was her word, how many stupid decisions that she had made around her money. She had no awareness that she was actually saying that out loud until the end of our conversation. I asked her nicely if she did, and she didn't have that awareness.
Hmm.
And I think she didn't realize how much that was influencing her behavior, because her underlying belief might have been that she wasn't smart when it came to her money. That's going to have an impact, right? That leaves a mark. So going back to the narrative, it's really retracing the roots. What were the experiences? What were the memories? When I say experiences, these are what are called flashpoints in the financial therapy world. So these are the big, emotionally indelible events that happen. They can be positive, they can be negative, but they left a big impression. And then there are the smaller moments that we remember. But all of that goes into what really creates our money self or our money persona. And a lot of times, just thinking about those things and asking yourself the question, what did I make certain events mean, can start to reveal some of the money scripts or money beliefs that you have. And there is research out about money scripts. There are 4 main ones: money avoidant, money worship, money status, and money vigilance. So money avoidance is someone is so stressed about money, they literally avoid it. The underlying belief is money is bad. So somebody who might think that money is bad, when they come into any money, they get rid of it. They spend it, or I'm sorry about that. They spend it or give it away, because if I have it, I'm bad. Money worship is the belief that more money will fix all my problems. Money status is my net worth is my self-worth. Out of all the scripts, that's probably the one that's visible to the eye the most. It might be the person who drives the newest car or trades in their phone and has to have the newest model. Money vigilant is money is private. So somebody who's money private, I'll give you a perfect example. So a client that I worked with, she grew up hearing, when she would ask about money, none of your business. Everything was none of your business, none of your business. She then came up to believe that money is private. That belief even carried into her relationship with her husband, that money is so private that she cannot ask him about his financial affairs, nor she reveal hers to him. And that's creating some challenges between who she's being in the office and who she's being at home, and they're not congruent, they're not one and the same, and it's causing her to feel a lot of anxiety around that. So when we discovered that belief, she just had this huge aha moment of, no wonder this is so difficult. I'm operating under money's private. Literally, I can't talk about it. And it also extended to her not feeling that she had the right in the most significant relationship in her life to actually ask her husband about money. That's how pervasive these beliefs can be.
Yeah, this this is a question. I'll kind of just jump into it. Around this idea of what creating new stories, creating new ideas after knowing these four things for you. What have
Mhm.
you seen kind of spill over when you're working with someone around these things, and when you're, creating uh, new relationships? What spills over other than just around money? Because obviously this woman, it helped her relationships. When you're working with your clients, yeah, what is spilling over into other
Yeah,
aspects of their life?
it's such an astute question on your part. So, like anything else in life, whether it's money, your health, your work, whatever it is, anything that you change, there's a ripple effect to where it's going to have an impact on the other, other people or other parts of your life. In particular, the woman that I was describing with the belief that money is private, she was actually discussing how much other relationships in her life, her sister, some other family members, how much they improved.
Mm-hmm.
And what that stemmed from was her just being more comfortable talking about one area, that it actually made it easier for her to step into conversations that were harder for her before when she made this discovery. So it was kind of a very cool spillover effect.
Yeah.
Um, it just naturally happens. It's hard to know or forecast in advance where all the spillover and the carryover is going to be, but we just all know that it happens. When you change or improve one area, we literally evolve into new people, right? We become somebody new. And we're terrible at emotional forecasting, as they say. So, we think about our situation today. And even if we think about ourselves in a week or a month or 6 months, and, especially this year, who among us can't say that we are a different person in December of 2020 than we were in January of
Yep.
2020? I don't know about you, but I feel like I've shed a lot of skins this
a
year,
hundred
and all
percent
for the good, right?
Yeah.
Just all of us, right? This has been a big growth year on
Yeah.
so many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're thinking about January, who I would be in December and what I would be thinking and feeling, this is the emotional forecasting part. What's hard to predict is as we change, we can't anticipate the type of person we're going to change into and who she or he is going to be, and who he or she will think or feel, right? Because we know our beliefs cause our emotions and feelings. So if we don't even know what we'll be thinking or doing, we can't possibly know how we'll be feeling later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's also why sometimes this inability to predict our future emotions when it comes to money, what's really interesting is the research actually says that wealthy people do not feel secure or wealthy. And I think part of what explains that is when we've got a really big goal on the horizon and it's way far out there, and we're imagining all the positive aspects of reaching that milestone, and we're imagining all of the awesome feelings that we're going to feel when we reach that milestone. There's so much time and distance, and there's so much evolution that happens to us between here and there, that oftentimes we reach that goal and we don't feel as wealthy or secure as maybe our accounts say that we are. We just don't feel it. So it's a little, I think it's a big misnomer out there that people who have amassed a significant amount of wealth, that they feel it and they feel secure. They often feel just as insecure.
Hmm. That's really interesting. And kind of coming back uh, to the family and how this family can work with money, and whether they have these insecurities or they feel in a better situation. How is it that we can help our children understand? Where do we start when it comes to talking to our children about money?
Yeah, great question. So, you know that I'm a big Billie Eilish fan.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorites is Everything I Wanted. There's a great line in that song which goes, "If I knew what I said would go straight to your head, what would I say instead?" So I don't know what she intended by those lyrics, but my money brain
Yeah.
thought about how fascinating. Um, if I knew what I said would go straight to your head, what would I say instead? We should just know, or if anybody out there is a parent, whatever you're saying, it's going straight to your kid's head.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. So there's two pieces of advice. One, I think being intentional, actually really thinking about what do you want to say to your children about money. It's not so much what do you want to teach them. Yes, that's part of it also. But we don't actually stop and think about what do I want to say intentionally, right? Things just come out. Maybe we repeat what we heard growing up. Maybe in the spur of the moment, we're not even realizing that we're sending a money message by reacting to something or being in a certain, shopping situation or something. We need to actually be intentional. So I coached a client once who heard, "You can't have everything you want." I think that's probably a pretty common thing.
Mm-hmm.
What if she had heard, "You can have everything you want"? What if, as a little girl, she heard, "You can be whoever you want"? Which doesn't necessarily sound like a money script or a something to say about money to pass along to your child, except that it does give your child a message of self-efficacy. And when it comes to money, being self-efficient is highly effective toward taking action on the goals that you have. So it's really about being intentional about what you say. The second piece of advice is our children are not privy to the inner workings of the decision-making process that goes on in our head, or maybe even on a piece of paper. So maybe a new desk shows up in the house, right? I mean, probably everybody's bought desks or some equipment for their kids this year for all of the homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe your kids don't know that you price shopped it. You looked at 4 different websites and 3 different stores, and you looked for the best price. It just showed up. So giving them the backstory about, I set a budget for it, here's how I shopped for it, here's how I negotiated for it, whatever it is, whatever the item is, you don't necessarily have to even name the numbers, because some people are uncomfortable discussing numbers, like how much money they make or how much money they have. You can leave that out if that's not something that's comfortable. What's valuable, I think, to the children are understanding the thought process that went into making a financial decision. That's really valuable for a child to know and to learn from their parents.
Mm. Two really important pieces, but packed full of information, and really taking a moment to think about what is most important in your family as a unit, as a group. And if you're just a single parent, then what is most important in your life? And like we spoke about before, not wanting to maybe repeat some things from the past, but recreating a new story. I
Yeah.
want to talk about success. Just after listening to you for during this conversation, it almost sounds like success doesn't have to equate to the amount of money that you have. It
Mhm.
it could be that you're just working well, or you understand how to communicate around money, or you understand whether you're avoidant or you worship, or really, what is success? What does it mean? And what does it look like in 2020, 2021?
Yep. Well, I think everyone gets to define their own success, right? And the most common answer that I get to the question when I ask, what does wealth mean? I don't ask people, what does being rich mean? I ask, what does wealth mean to you? And the most common answer I get is, it means being able to do what I want, when I want, and how I want. And then they'll usually add, without worrying about money.
Mm-hmm.
So if we unpack that a little bit, I call that the universal answer. Basically, it's describing, I want to be financially free. And how much money you do or you don't need. And you're right, the amount of money you have or don't have has nothing to do with the relationship that you have with money.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship you have with money is your inner thought process and comfort with that relationship with money. You have to nurture it just like any other, right? Because I know it's weird to say we have a relationship with money, because
It is.
money's an inanimate object that doesn't show any signs of life, yet it animates a lot of our lives, right? So, and I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
We were just talking about being, successful. What does that mean in this day and age?
Yeah. So it really boils down to what is your definition of wealth? What is your definition of being financially free? And there's some variation usually of doing what I want, when I want, how I want. Once you actually really define that, right? Doing what I want. Well, what is it that you want to be doing? Is that a career pursuit? Is that a home pursuit? What is that pursuit for you? Most of our goals and dreams in life are financially underwritten, right? Money touches all aspects of our lives. So it's an unavoidable connection to achieving what we want. It's not everything, right? But it's got a connection. So where I take it a step further is having somebody define, what are the elements of that? And then you brought something up a minute ago about values. And I think it's actually very important to connect your values, right? Purpose-led wealth to everything that you do. And depending on who you follow, I'm a huge, Queen Brene Brown fan.
Woo woo.
And
Love her.
love Brene. And, her work, she suggests that we really need to boil our value down, or values, that we really have one value. And we don't have a different set of values for work than we do at home, and vice versa. And I believe that. I think we can probably have more than one value, but really knowing what your values are and aligning your thinking and your spending and your saving decisions around your values is really purposeful in getting from point A to point B. And I think that goes hand in hand with someone's definition of wealth. The thinking versus worrying part. So what people, I think, want to do is never have to think about their money. Well, what I always say is, you don't have to worry about your money, but you do need to think about it. And that gets back to the relationship, right? If you're going to have a relationship with someone, you need to be thoughtful with them. You need to give them time and attention. It's the same connection with a relationship. It's just to give those elements to your money, just like you would a human being, even though it's not a human.
Yeah. This, coming back to the relationship, some people hear the word money and they don't like it. It makes them feel gross. They don't want to touch it. They dislike capitalism. They don't want to be a part of it. And some people, have really attached themselves to it, maybe overly in some respects. What does money mean to you, and how can you shift or change that relationship to money? Because like you said, it's not it's inanimate. It can't love you back. Maybe someone could think it's loving you if it's in your bank account, but if someone has a relationship that isn't good, they dislike it, and when they come up against it, it's this consistent fight. What can you say to open the doors, or open to the idea that it doesn't always have to be a fight?
Well, there's no easy way out. The only way, as they say, through is through. And what I would say to anyone who is having a reaction to their money, whether it's overdoing it and wanting it for the sake of just wanting money, because I'm a big believer that money serves a purpose. And I've actually never met anyone who's told me that their life goal is to do better than the stock market, by 2 percentage points every single year until they die. Like, no one says this. Everyone says,
that's actually my goal, Michelle. So
it is. All right, well, you're the first. We got work to do.
yeah.
What everybody says, or what people say are, if you have children, maybe it's, I want to provide a comfortable home for my family, and maybe I want to send my kids to college, or I want to provide opportunities that expose my kids to adventure or to other parts of the world, right? Whatever it is, we all have these desires of things that we want to achieve in our money. And, the two descriptions that you used of someone who's so anxious about money, there's a reason, right? Or the opposite of someone who's accumulating just for the sake of accumulating. There's a reason, right? So wherever we resist something or wherever we're overdoing something, then it's a reason enough to start to dig in. And the only way to dig in that I know of is to look at your past history, which then you can start to think, okay, this is like the therapy part. The being therapeutic with your money is, it doesn't mean deep analysis. It just means take a cursory look back and just ask yourself some questions, because we know in anything that we accomplish in our life, most of what we succeed in, it comes from the inside out. Yes, there are outside influences. We need knowledge, we need expertise, we need all of those things. But it always has this individual component of that inner drive. And going back to your point about peeling back the layers of the onion, we can peel back the layers of our own onion. And it's just a matter of getting curious and introspective. That's really the game, is just ask yourself.
Get curious. Well, thank you so much for getting curious with me. I've enjoyed our time.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you would like to listen to this and more, you can go to GreenTreeAyurveda.com. Thank you so much. And with that, get curious. Thank you.